In a desolate border town where the law was as shifting as the desert sands, survival was the only currency. This was a place of sun-cracked adobe and forgotten names, where the residents lived in the shadow of poverty and the whims of armed men. Here, childhood was a luxury few could afford. By the age of 5, children carried wood. By 10, their eyes held the weariness of old souls. In this harsh environment, a child was either a future laborer or an extra mouth to feed. Those without strong families often became invisible, drifting to the edges of society until hunger or neglect claimed them. 8-year-old, Lucia sat by the town's central well, the rhythmic creak of the pulley providing the soundtrack to her abandonment. Though her dress was frayed, it was clean, and her hair had been braided by careful hand signs of a protection that had only recently vanished. She had waited by the well since dawn, an unmoving fixture in the town's daily life. The townspeople passed her with practiced indifference. Donna Carmen, known for her sharp tongue, looked away. The baker, burdened by his own hungry children, quickened his pace. Even the local children, usually blunt and curious, were ushered away by parents who didn't want to acknowledge the girl's presence. To recognize her was to accept responsibility for her, and in this town, responsibility was a burden no one wanted. Only Don Lorino, a man notorious for buying young laborers for his ranch, watched her with a predatory calculation. Lucia shrank against the stones, clutching a faded blue ribbon tied tightly around her wrist in a complex, deliberate knot. As the sun began to dip, painting the mountains in hues of blood and fire, a solitary figure entered the plaza. Nayati was an Apache, a man of bronzed skin and silent steps, leading a weary horse. He was an exile, cast out from his own people to winters prior because he refused to participate in raids against defenseless families. He believed that war did not justify the slaughter of innocents, a conviction that cost him his tribe and left him a wanderer. He lived by a simple code: do not close your eyes when harm is avoidable. Nayati noticed what the town had chosen to ignore. He saw the girl's stillness, her lack of tears, the way she remained in the open, as if clinging to the hope that someone would return for her. He approached with the caution of a man who knew the dangers of hostile territory. As he stood before her, Lucia did not flinch. She looked up, her gaze holding a brutal honesty that bypassed all adult pretension. "Where do the children go when no one wants them?" she asked. The question struck Nayati with the weight of a physical blow. He knew the answer all too well. He had seen children sold into servitude, used as nameless laborers, or left to perish in the cold. He wasn't a savior by trade, but he recognized the collective silence of the town as a form of violence. He began to ask questions, but the responses were a chorus of evasions. The mother was gone. The father never existed. Perhaps they moved north. No one knew her name. No one claimed a connection. The town had collectively decided that Lucia was a ghost. Nayati looked at the blue ribbon on her wrist. The knot was too intricate to be accidental. It was a message. In that moment, he made a choice that would tether his fate to hers. He knelt to meet her eyes, speaking loudly enough for the gathering crowd to hear. "I will be your family," he declared. His words shattered the town's comfortable silence. The declaration of an Apache claiming a local child sparked immediate hostility. Don Macario, a local merchant, accused him of kidnapping, but Nayati stood his ground. "You call this kidnapping?" he challenged. "I call it giving a home to what you threw away." The tension escalated with the arrival of Horace McKinnon, a wealthy landowner whose influence was fueled by the town's hunger. Beside him was Father Salcedo, a priest who used morality as a tool for social control. McKinnon saw the girl not as a child, but as a missing piece of a larger puzzle. Salcedo immediately framed the situation as a moral crisis. Painting Nayati as a violent outsider threatening a Christian child, "This girl is under the protection of the town," Salcedo proclaimed, though he had ignored her all day. Nayati countered their hypocrisy with cold facts, pointing out the children already working as slaves on McKinnon's estates. The confrontation turned dangerous as McKinnon and Salcedo incited the crowd, labeling Nayati a kidnapper to justify their intervention. Realizing that logic would not win against a mob, Nayati took Lucia and retreated into the wilderness, utilizing his knowledge of the terrain to evade McKinnon's armed men. As they traveled, Nayati began to decipher the markings on Lucia's ribbon. It wasn't just a memento, it was a map. The lines represented a path to a hidden water source in Ojo de Agua. In this arid region, water was power. McKinnon's obsession with the girl became clear. She was the key to a resource that would grant him absolute dominion over the valley. Nayati also discovered a darker truth. Through a trusted midwife who operated on the fringes of the town's society, he learned that Saltito had a blood connection to Lucia's mother. The girl had been abandoned not by tragedy, but by design. To silence a family that knew too much about McKinnon's illegal land and water seizures, Nayati knew that running forever would condemn Lucia to a life of shadows. He decided to return to the town and confront the lie at its source. With the midwife's help, they organized a meeting during a public gathering. Nayati didn't use weapons. He used the truth. He presented the map on the ribbon and the midwife's testimony, exposing Salcedo's family ties and McKinnon's theft of the communal water source. The revelation broke the spell of fear. The townspeople, seeing the physical evidence of the corruption that had kept them poor, turned their backs on McKinnon and Salcedo. The priest's authority crumbled when his personal betrayal was laid bare, and McKinnon's militia, seeing the tide turn, refused to fire on their own neighbors. While the town reclaimed its water and reorganized its leadership, Nayati faced a final dilemma. He could not offer Lucia a stable life on the trail, and he would never be truly accepted in the town. The midwife offered a solution. Her sister, a widow in a nearby village, would take Lucia in. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was a safe one. Before they parted, Lucia untied the blue ribbon and handed it to Nayati. "So you remember," she said. He tucked the cloth into his pocket near his heart. Their goodbye was brief, marked by the quiet understanding that family is defined by action rather than blood. Years passed. Nayati remained a wanderer, but he returned periodically to visit Lucia, bringing gifts from the desert: a rare feather, a polished stone, stories of the horizon. He watched her grow into a capable woman who worked in a sewing shop, respected for her resilience. When Nayati finally passed away, he was found resting against a tree by a stream, the faded blue ribbon still in his pocket. Lucia lived a long, full life. She married and had children of her own, but she never forgot the man who didn't look away. She kept the ribbon in a small box, and when her grandchildren asked about it, she told them the story of the Apache and the girl at the well. She taught them that the world is full of people who find excuses to ignore suffering, and that the greatest act of courage is to be the one who stops. When Lucia eventually died, she was buried with the ribbon. Her legacy lived on in her descendants and in the town's folklore. The story of Nayati and Lucia became a reminder that even in the harshest landscapes, humanity can take root. The question Lucia asked as a child, "Where do the children go when no one wants them?" finally had a permanent answer. They go to those who have the courage to see them. They go to those who choose to stay. The desert wind continues to blow through that border town, carrying the dust of the past. But the cycle of indifference was broken. Because one man chose to act, a girl survived to tell the tale, proving that while the world may be imperfect and often cruel, a single choice to be family can change the course of history.